Hello, everybody. The following is a conversation between me and Lief Youngs. We talk about running, valued communities, sustainability, and animal rights activism. Hope you enjoy.
We're rolling. Do you want to just start off and maybe tell us your name and any credentials you have and different things like that?
Well, I'm Lief. I'm a long-time Fort Collins resident. I've been here over 20 years. I came here specifically to go to CSU on a recommendation from a family member, and I got really, really entrenched in CSU, and I really loved it. I did quite a few things while I was there. I got an ag business and bioagricultural sciences degree with a concentration in plant health, and that really fostered a love for the environment and the health and the plants. So, as you can imagine, I have a little forest at my home, but I keep trying to get away from Fort Collins, as all my family is in the Boulder kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
They're all within Boulder, but kind of like some are on the outskirts, some are
Yeah.
in the city. And I really like Boulder. I went to high school there. At least I finished my high school there. I grew up in the great armpit called New Jersey. And when I got out here, everybody kind of slowed down, and I like that. And everybody started to enjoy what we have. And that also brought more to me to be mindful of what we have. So I keep trying to get back to Boulder, but as you can see, I rode my bike today, and I very happily rode my bike today, and that keeps me in Fort Collins. Every opportunity I get to go back to Boulder, like something about bikes just pulls me back. And I'm not a huge biker. I'm more of a huge runner, and I'm getting back into that recently after a medical issue that's getting under control now, which I'm happy about. So maybe you can yourself explain a little bit about what got you into the podcasting and what you kind of want out of the podcasting.
In general, I just want to have conversations with people. I think of myself as being pretty curious, and so you can read 100 books, but I would more prefer to face-to-face interact with somebody, and for a nice brief hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours with some people, I get to kind of dive into their life. I get to know them a little bit. Normally with the headphones, it's very intimate, you can still hear me now, but it really locks you in. It's really fun to kind of, and I've been thinking about this lately. There's a ritual to it. There's a bit of an aspect to it of like, we picked a place. We have all these things. Like I have a whole ritual of setting these things up, and then sit down and have like at least attempt to have a meaningful conversation with somebody, right? And I really like that. I really like that there's a kind of a step to it. But then right when I hit record, I try to do it with new people, and so it's a new story, and it's not the same every time, so to speak. So yeah, I think that answers your question.
Well, after what happened this weekend, it was all the protesting, but more importantly, in my world, it was Western States Endurance Run, which is a pretty famous 100-miler from Squaw Valley to Auburn, California. I feel pretty special being your person you're curious about.
Can you tell us more about that race? So I haven't heard of it, honestly.
I think it's the oldest 100-miler in the world.
Okay.
And for me, what I like about it is there's a group called iRun. I think they're called iRun, and they live stream a lot of it, the different aid stations, and you can really, and especially the finish line, and you can really see it in people, like how they're handling the race. And 100 miles is even for the best of the best, the fastest of the fastest, is still tough. And we all remember a couple of years ago that Jim Wormsley, he made a wrong turn and he went 5 miles out of his way, and he didn't make it. But the next year he set a course record and stuff. So, but the cool thing is that at the finish line, and I guess this is kind of cool about any in the really in the ultra marathoning community, that everybody supports everybody. But at the end, you come into this high school track, and you get on the track just after the finish line, and you do one lap. But about 150 meters, you're fully on camera. The crowd's got you. Usually 100 miles is enough to spread everybody out, that you're all by yourself, and people really cheer you on. And even this year, it was pretty special. I haven't really delved into all the highlights and all the different personal finishing videos of some of the more famous people. But the winner from 1983, he didn't make the cutoff, so he did not finish. But he still crossed the finish line. But it was cool to have him come back 40 years later.
Where was that held at? Where?
It's one from Auburn, from Squaw Valley,
Okay.
which is former Winter Olympics site, to
Okay.
Auburn, California.
Okay, gotcha. That's
Had
awesome.
Placer Valley High,
Yeah.
or Placer High School, I
Yeah.
think it's called.
And so, what got you into running?
Well, as a kid, I was always big into sports, and my dad almost had a professional baseball career.
Mm-hmm.
He denied that career because he had an offer, and I've seen his scouting videos. He had video on reel, and he got it when I was a little kid. He got it transferred over to VHS, and I watched it on TV. I watched it. It was pretty cool. But he was gonna play in a rookie league, which is about as low as you can be. That was going to be in Virginia and West Virginia. And he said, I'm not going to be making enough money to live. You got to be, in his mind, you got to be at least AAA, just right under the major leagues to make enough to survive. So he denied that, but he's still a really, really big baseball fan. So that was one of the things he got me into, and I played that as a kid. But I was never a big kid. So hitting the ball far, throwing the ball hard, pitching and outfielding were kind of out of the question, even though they put me in the outfield because the kids couldn't hit. And so if you couldn't really play, you put you out there kind of like nobody's going to get it to you, so you're not going to mess up. And then I wanted to be a catcher. I thought that was the next exciting spot, but I'm left-handed, and left-handers just don't happen because I'm going to hit the batter every time I throw the ball 99% of the time. So I also played soccer. And that's where I really got into running. I would eat up the whole field, and sometimes the coaches would get mad that I was doing more than my position entailed.
This was all in Jersey?
Yeah, pretty much. I did a little bit of out here. I did a little bit of soccer out here, but it more became fun because by the time I left New Jersey, I was getting big into the running. And what really helped was I was part of a state championship team. Smaller school, but I was part of a state championship cross-country team out there. My dad offered him up before the race. He said, "I'll buy a full pizza party if you guys win." And I guess that was a little spark they needed. Any kid can use pizza as a motivation. Yeah. So I did that, and then I came out here, and the runners were a lot better, a lot more. So I just kept doing that, and I was big enough into running that as my gift to myself. About a week after I graduated CSU, I ran the Fort Collins Marathon, which is now has become the Colorado Marathon. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I hit the wall, which I've heard about, and that's the only time I've ever hit it. I've never ever done it, but I finished, and I kept going. And then finally, I wanted to find a community. I ran on my own, and it was what it was. It wasn't anything special. And then I found a community out here of great runners, and I asked a few too many questions, being curious like you are with your podcast. Yeah. And one of the guys, Pete Stevens, he's not a fast guy. He's not a slow guy. He's got the endurance. He's a little bit bigger guy. And I found this community to have everybody, all types, the skinnies, the fast, the slow, the big. But we all encourage each other, and we've all done some amazing races, Even this guy I thought, wouldn't be any good for even a 5K. He's done 50K, which is just over 30 miles. So I started asking questions, and they go, yeah, there's things that's longer than a marathon. And I got brewing in my head, and I said, well, let's give it a go. Let's give it a try. So I ran, and I did training runs, and I got to a marathon in my training runs, and nothing happened. I thought that was the wall. Because normally people don't talk about anything over a marathon, so I figured that was the wall, and that wasn't the wall. So I said, "What is the wall?" And that's, I guess, become, as far as staying active, that's become my goal, is to find out where that wall really is. Okay. I've heard of 200, I've heard of 150, and I think maybe if I might want 100. I kind of do want 100, but yeah, I don't think I'm in that league yet.
How close are you right now? Would you say?
Well, I've had a medical issue. I've had colitis, which is inflammation of the colon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had an amazing medical team, and I don't wish an autoimmune disease on anybody, but it's interesting to be in that world, in the medical world, where you're in and out of doctors, and you're trying different medications, and you're trying to get it under control, and you're adjusting life to live with the condition, and that's done a lot for me. I'm not working, thankfully, because I have a loving family that helps me survive. But that also has allowed me to, instead of doing things that I'm required to do to make money to live, I'm able to do what I want to do mentally and physically.
Okay.
So I've got a good medical team, and they recently got me on a really powerful med that's allowed me to run, and I've been running just over a week every day without running for about 2 years. So I've been excited every day. I've been on a endorphin high, I guess.
Yeah.
But as far as mentally, I live right next to a fabulous university, and the kids love the community. So they allow community members to participate in their student activities, which I'm very, very thankful for. And so I do a lot of sustainability, and I've learned at times it's frustrating, but at times it's enjoyable to learn how to. We talk about this carbon footprint, but that's really the scientific of it, is live without having just to buy everything that looks cool, and wanting to not buy everything that looks cool because I want not to waste resources.
That materialism aspect.
Right. But it's also frustrating sometimes to see other people do things that I'm learning not to do, like fast fashion and always having the latest iPhone, latest stereo, getting rid of things before they're really used up their life.
Yeah.
Just so they have something that's better, sounds better, works better, works faster. So.
Yeah. Backing up a bit, I'm really curious. What was the effect of your father on you like? He seems like he was a strong figure for you.
Definitely. That's a good thing you picked up on. My parents divorced when I was about 12 years old.
Okay.
And it was a pretty rough divorce. I don't remember a whole lot being so young, but I do remember my stepdad, who my mom's now married to. We kind of didn't jive at the beginning, but now he's one of the coolest guys I know, and he really took all the kids in and took them in as his own.
Yeah. And to be clear, so your father to you is your stepfather. He's really
no.
Is that what you would say, or?
Well, he's a strong figure, but my biological dad, he's there. He's kind of the teacher. But when they divorced, I took on to dad, and my sister took on to mom, so we kind of split.
Okay.
We split. I was living with dad, and sister was living with mom, but we did a lot of the guy things. My dad was a part-time martial arts teacher.
Okay.
He volunteered with the local YMCA, so I did a small bit of that. But he really liked to do the baseball thing.
Okay.
He knew all the rules. He had memorized the rule book. He was my little league coach and all that, and he just loved that. And he still talks about the time when the umpire didn't know all the rules, but the commissioner of our little league kind of had an ego about him that he had to always be right. So we lost a challenge when we could have maybe won the league. I don't know. See, but my dad was passionate about that, and that's kind of cool. But so.
And how did
I did quite a bit of wrestling, which I was never very good at, but I liked doing it. I was absolutely horrible. I don't know how I did 10 years and it was still the worst guy on the team. But I liked it.
Yeah. What were some lessons he taught you? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Well, he taught me the rule book of baseball for sure. And every time there's something weird, he likes when weird things happen. And he has to pull out some obscure rule that most people don't even know.
Yeah.
So I end up watching those unwritten rules of baseball kind of YouTube videos, or the rules that you can do, but you just don't, things like that. And I don't know. I don't know if there's any one rule he taught me or anything like that.
Okay.
And he always had a good garden. And I guess maybe part of my plant love came from the garden, but came from his garden. And everybody's always impressed. He always has the best. I don't know how he does it,
Yeah.
but he claims one of the things he does is he brings a little soil sample every few years over to CSU, and they got a nice cool soil lab, and I'm pretty proud of that coming from CSU.
Yeah.
And he gets it tested, and they make him his own little fertilizer and everything, and he swears by that. So it must be something good because his garden is pretty dang wonderful.
Yeah.
I get a lot of his extras when I go and visit him. So, but I don't know. My dad and I just bonded, and we just kind of learned to do the guy things, I guess. Watch baseball, watch guy movies. I don't know.
And do stuff, right? Like do a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of sports. It's
like we watched when I was a kid. We went and watched Michael Jordan play basketball.
Yeah.
When the Nets used to be in New Jersey. I don't remember the game at all. I just remember we had that experience. You know, we went to the old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to get to baseball once a year, but it's gotten a little expensive. So
Yeah.
I don't know what we're gonna do this season.
Yeah.
But I also like staying with the running because I'm pretty competitive. So it's kind of hard for me to be on a team. And it was hard for me in school when I had to do team projects because I want it to be done right. I want to know it's going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's why I kind of shifted away from all the team sports and got into the solitary sports because then I have 100% control over what happens.
Yeah.
Whether I trained enough, whether I didn't train enough, whether I fuel right during the race or whatever,
Yeah.
or I choose the right clothing.
Yeah.
It's all under my control. But I have a lot of these powerful other people that I can ask questions of, like I did to get into the ultra world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can tell you like to be kind of on your own in a sense, right? But it seems like you also like to teach, right? To me, it seems like there's a teacher in you. Is there not? What would you say?
I do like to teach, but I also don't feel like I'm the expert at anything.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of things. And together that might be the perfect combo, I get, maybe. You know? I want to get a master's degree, but I don't know in what.
Mm-hmm.
And with the disease, I haven't been able to put a lot of thought into that. So I don't know. I like to teach, but then again, I also like to learn from the best of the best.
Okay. I gotcha.
Like when I watch all those videos, you know, as people are now doing post-race interviews for what we talked about earlier, the Western States Endurance Run, and there's other big races. I like to see their post-interviews to see like what they thought went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I know they didn't think it went perfect.
Mm-hmm.
100 miler never goes perfect when it's 100 miles.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a long distance. Like many things can go wrong.
The goal is to do it in 24
hours.
But yeah. That's the big the 24.
Is that the benchmark for
right.
a lot of people?
It's kind of a benchmark, but the professionals will do it in about 15 to 17.
Yeah.
And we also had the third fastest woman this year, and that was kind of cool. And now with we have so much social media, it's kind of cool to see professional journalists get people in candid moments. Like that third fastest lady, there's a video of her on her Instagram page of her walking across the football field after the race, and she's kind of like, it looks like a duck walk, like a shuffle, and it's like that clues into me that she's a real person. She's not just born fast.
Yeah.
You know, that she worked at it. That maybe she was born fast, but she also worked at it, and she also does have the same failures that I have when I maybe don't train enough, and I do one more mile than I should have done, or something like that, and get the duck walk too. So,
yeah.
But and then we also have, while we're on the subject of sports, we also have the Tour de France coming up, and we have a young kid who won as the youngest rider. He won the actual Tour de France, and he was also the youngest rider, and then he came back and did it again. So we're gonna see. We have some exciting.
Yeah. Who's that? Do you know?
I forget his name. But he's a European kid.
Okay.
So
yeah.
But I don't remember all their names. They all have crazy names,
Yeah.
and they switch teams. And I watch it all for the excitement of the bike crashes, and when they're riding in the rain and they're going on these big turns, and you give a big gasp that 95% of them made it. Only one guy left the course, and it's pretty exciting when they challenge each other up the hills. And these hills are not and the TV makes the hills look really, really not steep. And then the announcer will say, "This is 25%." And you're like, "Whoa!" Yeah. It's exciting, and then they're going downhill at 40 miles an hour, and like things I can only dream of having the courage to do.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
You're so vulnerable on a bike. You know, I feel like, especially going 40 miles an hour down a hill, you know.
Well, you are vulnerable, but like it's a time over 21 days. So if the guy gets 5 seconds every single day, he builds up. So they really fight for those few seconds, which is really cool. And then there's the guys at the finish line, you know, that maybe not good hill climbers, but they can go fast for 100 meters, and that's exciting too. Even though I'm the hill climber type and I'm the out there all day type, I still enjoy those guys when their bike is going, you know, swaying side to side. They're bending that bike almost in half. It seems like when you're watching it on TV, and they hit good speeds and really push that bike to its limits. It's amazing.
Yeah. What why do you think somebody should have a garden?
Should have a what?
A garden.
A garden? I was never about the garden because I was never very good at growing stuff, and plus I live in a condo and everything. I don't really have a whole lot of space. It's my own. But as I got into sustainability, I've seen programs. I've seen a lot of talk about food deserts. That's where people, you know, maybe the only thing they have within 50 miles is a 7-Eleven or a gas station, and they really can't get healthy food and all that. And we're also talking now about how Russia hoarded. I don't know how they got. I didn't see all the news on how they got it. I'm assuming they stole it. And Ukraine is 40% of the world's grain, and a lot of that grain goes to cattle and stuff like that, which it shouldn't be. And then one of the local nurseries does a give back to the community type thing, where you can bring in your extra produce and stuff. So I feel like with the way the world is, and we're hitting drought conditions. We just had upwards of 30,000 cattle dying in Kansas because of the drought, which was a shocker to a lot of people who aren't in the industry, but not a shocker to the farmers. And it could continue. It's not like it's a one-time deal. It could continue, that we need to maybe become anarchist, maybe have communities where we support each other as best we can, and say, hey, I got extra this, I got extra that. Maybe trade skills as opposed to trading money.
What does it mean to be?
And a garden might be one way we can trade skills. You know,
Yeah.
I got extra tomatoes. Here, have some tomatoes on your pizza. You got bread baking skills. Give me some pizza dough, and together we'll make a pizza.
Yeah. What does it mean to be an anarchist exactly? Would you say you are, personally?
I say I don't know if I subscribe to all the anarchist ideas, but I believe one of the strong tenements of anarchy is a community that supports itself. You know, we don't need to bring in the police. We don't need to bring in elected officials. We kind of work it all out together.
Okay.
And based on the fact that everybody wants to feel valued, everybody kind of does right to everybody else. Like, you know, you're not gonna steal when you want to feel valued in the community.
Yeah. So you like that part of anarchy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The self-sufficiency of the community. And the fact that once we're self-sufficient, we don't want to do wrong to the community. Like now we have all these things that are kind of like telling us that we're worthless. You know, we have police out there saying we have to enforce these laws. We have to pay taxes. We have to do this. And so we're always trying to fight back, and we're wanting to violate the laws. And I don't know if that's healthy, but a community where everybody wants to feel valued and everybody values everybody else is a cool community.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in the running community, and that's one thing I like about this ultra community. When, you know, if you get on the internet and you start watching some of these people's finish races, there'll be a lot of people standing at the finish lines. Whereas, you know, you go to a 5K race and everybody just like, I got the medal, I'm outie, or I got my free beer, I'm outie. You know, whereas in this ultra community, people stay. Even the professional, the guy who wins the race, some of them talk about, I stay there and I shake I congratulate every person that finishes the line, even if it takes another 10 hours.
Yeah.
That's after I've gotten, you know, fresh change of clothes. I've gotten maybe a bowl of soup. But I come back to the finish line and I congratulate everybody, even though I'm in a different league than they are. They still finished and we're still got the same belt buckle.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to summarize. Do you think it's mostly because of all these rigid structures we have over us that's why a lot of people feel maybe dispossessed and depressed and turn to criminal behaviors, and maybe to shed some of so many rigid structures and so many systems? Is that
For some people, it might end up in homelessness and if not homelessness, criminal behavior in and out of the jail system, because the jail system doesn't give us a way to get out of it very easily because they're making money too. But for other people, I think it might just be, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm not going to get in trouble, and that doesn't improve the system. You know, when they're not paid enough, they might have to work a second job. They really can't. They don't have the time. Once they give up some time to do what changes the system, they're kind of falling behind. And it's kind of, we need a system where everybody can contribute what they want to contribute. You know, if I continue to work at a grocery store like I was in my past job, what am I contributing that I want to contribute? What I really want to contribute is I want to do what I'm doing now. You know, get rid of trash, get things in the recycle bin that need to be in the recycle bin because I know how to do that. Everybody else might not know how to do that, but they know how to give me their trash. And so if they're willing to give me their trash, I'm willing to use my powers, and then they know how to maybe fix a car, which I don't know how to do, or they maybe know how to change my bike tire. So I can keep riding my bike and everything. And like, you know, if we all do that, we all make each other heroes, kind of, because if I can do what I want to do, I feel very empowered. And if we empower everybody to do what they want to do as opposed to what they feel they have to do, just to make another dollar, you know. So if I had the, you know, in the system we have now, if people had 6 months to find a job, they might find the perfect job, but in that 6 months you're not making money. So it's kind of like you go down to the next grocery store, you go down to the next record store, you go down to the next coffee shop, and you just take what people are offering to not fall behind. And that's a little frustrating. I like to see it when we have all these professional runners out there, because when they're not racing, I don't consider them as being sponsored. You know, the sponsor wants those races, the sponsor wants those wins, but all those days in between, they're doing what they want to do, and it's beautiful. And now that we have social media, we can encourage people to do what they want to do because we can put things up there so easily. We can see so many amateurs. It's not just NBC, ABC. It's also YouTube, Instagram, pictures, and and it's beautiful to see people doing what they want to do. Like my buddy, he's who I emulate kind of a little bit. He's going to run the Leadville 100 for the second year in a row, and he just went down this past weekend and did the Leadville training camp. Where you can preview the course, different parts of the course, and run with other people from all over the country who are also going to run the Leadville 100. But he put up these pictures that were like, he had Hope Pass, he had running through Aspen Forest, and they were just the most gorgeous photos, which if we didn't have this kind of amateur social media, I wouldn't be able to see all that and get really inspired to like say, hey, I just started running again. When am I going to be able to get up in the mountains? When am I going to see that herd of cow that I remember seeing a couple of years ago when I ran 2.5 hours? So we can also inspire each other to be stronger than we would have been.
I love that philosophy in that that work ethic of like, you don't get paid to pick up garbage and stuff like that. You do that because you love to do that, right?
And it's also a mentally stimulating, because I know that this is one of the things I tell people is, if we don't get active, who's going to be active? And right now it's old white men and old people running our political system, because they're the ones that vote and they're the ones that get into Congress, and everybody else is just kind of disenfranchised and says, well, everybody else is kind of left out in the dark. We don't know how to navigate the system because we don't have the money. So we haven't figured out how to navigate that system. So we're kind of like, we don't know, that system is like foreign to us. We're just not going to vote. We're just not going to play in that system. But that system is important, and we need to be playing in the political system. And I tell people that you got to get out there, but you can't do everything you want to do. I would love to advocate for kids. I would love to advocate for early childhood education. I would love to advocate for, you know, healthcare in poor countries. But I can only do so much at the level that I want to do it at. And I choose, one thing I choose is sustainability. I choose women's rights because I almost live in that community from where my home is, being near a Planned Parenthood, being near a university of young people who are just now figuring out that healthcare is important. Insurance in this country, it sucks, but insurance is important. and I get involved in all the things on campus, getting people excited to vote, and when politicians come to campus and stuff like that. So we can only do so much, and the biggest thing I get into is outside of the locally, I'm into animal rights, and I think that's they always talk about all these droughts and all these things, and the data shows that the leading cause is animal agriculture, and we got to kind of trying to get people educated to say we need to make a change. We can do that personally, and that's one of the cool parts is the little changes we can make personally affect the bigger.
Yeah. Circling back, I love the intention you set for your day and everything like that. What would you say? I know you say you encourage those people, but what would you say about the people that if they were given liberty to do whatever they want and they had free reign, but they didn't make use of their time, they weren't productive with it, right? I think some people worry about that, the other side of people that aren't maybe as thrilled.
I don't think anybody wastes their time. They might say I get bored. They might say I'm not doing enough, but they choose. We all have the same, as they say, we all have the same. When I run, people get to the starting line and they say, I didn't train enough. Well, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. So, and if we look at somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, they ask him, why do you train from 8 to midnight? He's like, well, I'm this, and this. I'm a student. I have a job to have, and that's the time I get. And we know what happened to him. He was the youngest person ever to win some of the largest competitions there were.
Yeah.
And if you do his arm measurements, they're bigger than my head. So, he's still quite a big guy, and he got into politics and he made waves. Yeah.
But what about the people that don't have that work ethic?
I don't think it's not about having that work ethic. I think it's more about being discouraged.
Okay.
And I think the people that understand it, I think, are the ones that need to, as one of their daily affirmations or whatever, need to pick up the other person and encourage them and say, hey, look, when you stand next to somebody at a picket line, say, hey, we're doing good here. Keep this going, or choose that one thing that or the two things that you're passionate about and go for it. Okay. And if you're passionate about guns, go for it. Advocate for good gun legislation. If you're whatever it might be, because there's a lot of things I'm passionate about that I just don't have the time for. If I can only choose 2 or 3 things to really do them correctly and do them with the best of my intentions, I can only choose 2 or 3 things. I can't do everything. Yeah. If I chose everything to do, I'd be doing something different every day. Yeah. And 365 days is not, one thing a day is not enough for each individual thing. So.
Yeah.
It's even more important after this weekend to be very passionate about those 1 or 2, those few things that you're really passionate about.
Yeah. What happened this weekend?
Well, this weekend we had, on Thursday and Friday, we had some very powerful decisions by the Supreme Court of the United States. And, well, let's back up. One of the things that frustrates me about these decisions, and they were concerning guns and abortion rights. And one of the things that frustrates me is that when some of these people got elected or got nominated, they lied. And one of my favorite politicians, AOC, Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, who leads a very diverse and very special district out in the middle of New York City, which is wonderful that a person comes out of that district as much power as she has. Mm-hmm. Being a woman, and maybe she might even be our first woman president, I'd be happy about that. But there's some other women out there that are pretty powerful that I'd hope to be our first woman president. I hope it's sooner rather than later. But AOC made the huge point, and she's been harping on this point, and she's not shy. So I like that. When you get passionate about something, you can't be shy about it. And she said that when these 2 or 3 justices were doing their nomination questioning, they lied. They said, oh, yeah, abortion rights are in the Constitution. We're not going to touch them. And we saw what happened this weekend. So I think the church has a way to, I think maybe their religion has taught them to say what people want to hear and then do what they want to do, which makes a lot of distrust.
Yeah. Distrust for who and in what? I
think it's distrust for the whole system that we're all trying to be players in. Mm-hmm. and we have these old white men and old people controlling, and they know how it works, and they have the time to figure it all out. They're creating distrust in everybody else who wants to play in it just part-time. So that's one of my things is educating people and getting people to pick up that ballot and at least fill it out.
Yeah.
And we had a good discussion this weekend. The crowd was small, so we didn't do our march, but we had a good discussion about gun legislation. And I said, and somebody asked, how do we get people to kind of start having the conversations that need to be had? And so we vote like we should vote. Well, people aren't voting. And I think the first step is to get people to, I said it like this. When I'm on social media quite a bit, and we see those, National Geographic comes out with these amazingly wonderful videos. And there's two types of videos that we see. And one of them is of these birds or fish. And there's thousands of them. And they all move without hitting each other. And they all do what the whole group wants to do. And I think that's where we're getting at. And where the fish, they all move together, and their shark comes, and they scare the shark away, even though they're a 6-inch fish and the shark is 22 feet or whatever. They scare the shark away. But they're all doing what the group wants to do. And I think that's where we need to get as a community, do what the community wants to get. But right now we're at the point of the hawk. The hawk is solitary. And the hawk comes and swoops the cat off your back porch and takes away. It's still a beautiful video of the hawk needs to eat, and still a beautiful video. But as a community, we're that cat. We're kind of, what do we do? We're failing. And I think we need to play in the system, learn to fail, and then we learn that we don't want to fail. Right now, we're just saying the system is such a failure that we're not even going to play in the system, but we need to play in the system.
What would it look like for us to be that school of fish? What actually would we have to?
Well, I think maybe the first major election year, we might have a very close presidential election where everybody's just randomly voting. They're saying, I know this person on the ballot, and we might get kind of a mix, 50-50 down the ballot. Some people say, I know this name, I know that name. They don't really know what Democrat means. They don't really know what a third party means. They don't really know any of that. And it'll be kind of floundering. We'll kind of like just be randomly choosing, say, I want to get this crap over with. And then they'll see that the system changed, and they had a part in the system changing, but it wasn't what they wanted. So maybe the next time they might research a little bit. They might ask me. They might ask their friends that they know are politically savvy. And then they might say, well, my friend steered me a little wrong. He steered me a little too this way or that way. So now I'm going to do my own research. And they take the 10 minutes and research, and the system will completely radically change to what the community needs. Maybe we might drop one of the major parties and go to these other parties like they do in Europe, where they have 10 or so parties, and there's parties that run on one single issue, which we can't imagine that here.
Yeah.
A candidate running on maybe homelessness, or running on animal rights, or running on just one single issue, and everybody says, oh, they're the radicals, but they get politicians in power for just this one single issue. And but first I think we need to play in the system, learn to fail, and then learn we don't want to fail, correct ourselves.
Do you think that?
And that could look like a lot of things. That might not necessarily be just politically. That might be getting back to our community that supports itself.
Yeah. Because the former statement to me is the attempt of our group to make effects to the system at the national scale. And then what you just said is an attempt to make an effect at the communal scale, right? And so do you think we should be focusing more nationally, or should we focus more communally?
I think we should be doing a little bit of both.
Okay.
But at the local level, we have our individuality has more effect. Like when you go to church on Sunday, you're only standing up and there's only 100 people there, whereas nationally there's 300 and some odd million people that you have to, you can only drive so much. And I think when we get the local, we figure out they kind of steer us, because we vote locally, and those people will say, hey, look, you voted for me. You wanted what I want. So if you want what I want nationally, here's my recommendation.
Yeah.
They'll kind of steer us, and we'll get our heroes, we'll get our people who are speaking to us, as opposed to like people who are just like, hey, you should vote for my guys.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what we're voting for, and we vote based on totally on name. And like, we saw how well that went with Donald Trump. We've seen how well that goes with silent Biden. And, you know,
Yeah.
we have had a black president. We've had one, and that's kind of shocking because, you know,
Yeah.
African American people aren't nothing in this as far as being a part of the society. You know, in Colorado, they're 11% of the population. In a white agricultural state,
Yeah.
they're still 11%. You go down to the South, and they'll be quite more. They'll be the farmers. They'll be the, so kind of.
Yeah. I agree with when you.
I think the biggest thing might be that, and one of the problems is when we get home from work, we turn on our TV, we get exactly what we want to hear. We get our feel-good movies, we get our feel-good TV shows, we get to laugh, we get all the crazy killings at the beginning of the news that are nowhere near us. They're in some Tennessee, and then when it becomes Columbine, we're like, well, maybe it's here, but that's just once. That's not going to happen again, and it hasn't happened again. And so we go back to our feel-good movies, but we need to maybe turn off our TVs and go out and, for a little bit every day, get engaged in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And that could look like a lot of things to a lot of people. That could be our garden. That could be saying hi to the neighbor, having a drink on the porch and watching the guy ride his bike and waving.
Yeah.
It could be saying hi to the mailman. It could be, you know, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Putting a little activism sticker on the side of your mailbox. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
We need to get engaged to find out that. I don't think we found out that we want to be engaged. Once we start being engaged, we want to be engaged, and then we want to be educatedly engaged.
Yeah. And there's a big difference because that TV watching is very passive, but then everything you were just describing is very active, right?
Yeah, that's a true
to
point
be
too.
active
Being
into your community,
being engaged,
right?
as opposed to just sitting there and shutting down and not improving our mental not doing our mental engagement. You know, that's one thing that I find that now that I'm not working, I'm able to really exercise my mind, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Finding out that, and I show a lot more emotion now that I get passionate about things. You know, when I see a garbage truck go by, it's kind of like, how can we make that garbage truck come only one day less a week because we can get people to have less garbage, or how can we get one more bike on the road? Get that bike lane just 6 inches wider so that your grandma wants to get out there and ride. How can we get one more electric bike so that Big Bad Joe, who wants to lose 200 pounds, gets out there and rides, you know?
Yeah.
Once you can get engaged, you can get passionate. You can actually
Yeah.
start learning the things that you want to learn.
Do you have any projects currently that you're working on for any of that?
I do not, but the big project that I'm always looking forward to, and now that summer, I love the summertime. I absolutely love it because I can get out there late. Like last night, I was out there biking at 9:30 at night, and it wasn't yet 100% dark, and I like that. You know, but the projects I always like, now that I hang out with a little bit of the students, is in the fall and the spring. We get out there for the CSU sports. The students get paid. I don't get paid, but I get to go to the sports for free, and it's going to be exciting. We have a new football coach. We have a lot. He's totally changed up the philosophy of how to bring in players. So he's going to change up the style of play. I'm eager to see that. He's really passionate about it. They've, you know, with this amateur social media, they've mic'd him up a few times at practice, and it's just awesome to see that. They've been doing these crazy things where they ask the players like these crazy questions that really have no answer. Like how many holes does a pair of pants have, kind of thing, or how many holes does a straw have? And it's kind of cool to see all these big muscly guys who you think of, you know, their goal in life is just to hit another guy as hard as they can hit him, getting touchy feely. But I'm excited about getting back to the sports because, you know, we just had we're the first non-Power 5 school to have a player in football and a player in basketball drafted into the major sports leagues in the first 2 rounds in the same year. So I'm excited about that because our basketball team was really good, and it's really fun to see that. and that makes it a lot more fun to do the sustainability that we do at those events.
How do those connect, the sports events and sustainability? What's that like?
Well, I think what's happened with sustainability is when I was a kid, recycling was kind of the new big thing to do, and so everybody knew what to do, and they knew that they had this little blue bin. They would throw all the recyclables in, and they would take it out to the end of the curb, and everybody knew that was the ritual. Everybody did it, but now everybody's like, well, I've heard too much about it. I'm gonna turn my brain off to the recycling and everything like that. I know how to do it, and everybody's kind of forgotten how to do it. Now there's another generation coming along, and they were never educated like I was to be passionate about it. And when I go to these sporting events, we have a setup. It's a composting, recycling, and trash. But when people can come to me and hold up an item, and I point to the bin, and they throw it in there, I get excited that they did it right. They get excited that they learned something. And they go home with a little bit more knowledge that they know where to put that glass bottle now.
Okay.
And maybe that translates into that little blue bin getting used a little bit more at home. And hopefully that's what I would like to hope.
Yeah.
Maybe they get a slightly smaller trash can, and they save money, and
Yeah. And so
at the end they're thankful that it's being done.
Yeah. And so is this with a group on campus that you guys go out and...
We have it's called the Colorado State University Zero Waste Team, and the university has also seen that we've done such a powerful job that I like to say that we divert at least 80% of all the trash into compost or recycling, so it doesn't go to the landfill. And they see such a powerful result in that. They might be saving money. I don't know what the ultimate goal of the university is. That's probably what their goal is to save money. So they pay the students $15 an hour while we're at these sporting events. I think that's really cool.
Oh, yeah. And is that the main thing you guys do as a group?
Yeah, that's the main thing we do. We've also partnered with faculty and stuff within that do other sustainability things. Like we had a project where one of the faculty members had us come, and we made like basically recycled paper out of other junk and stuff, and it came out really cool. Like with different imprints in the paper, and it's like when you get that fancy card paper that has all like the leaves in it and stuff. We kind of made that from scratch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Trying to reach out to other groups and participating in other university functions, making them more sustainable.
Nice.
So I really like that we're kind of, because we know that they say by 2050 or whatever the number is, I don't even think it's that long, the local Larimer County landfill is going to be full. Well, what do we do next? Where does it go? We can't just keep putting things everywhere. There is no everywhere forever. And we know that with the drought, that as people use too much water, and with the way the laws are written, people are encouraged to use too much water so they don't lose their water rights and stuff like that, that when there's no more water, the ground sinks. And just last night I saw a photo of a guy next to like a phone pole, and he had dates on it, and it said like 1925 at the very top of this phone pole, and he's at the bottom. He's like 15, 20 feet lower.
Yeah. And
it says 1977. And that's how much the land went down because the water was gone underneath to hold it up. So it's kind of, so we got to be, with my sustainability, I'm able to teach others how to use less.
Yeah.
And when we start using less, the earth can be what the earth needs to be.
Yeah. What?
And it continue to be inhabitable for our species.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on what I've seen, and I haven't looked into it too much, but that a lot of our recycling isn't diverted to places where it gets recycled. Do you know what I mean by that?
You're talking about like the end product's not we're putting it where we need to put it, but it's not coming out the back end as a recycled product.
Yeah, we put it in the bin, and then I think within the last half decade or decade, like we were shipping it to China to be processed, and they have been denying us lately.
Right, China's denying us, so we got to be even more proactive with being more minimalist. I don't think we need to get rid of our cars and all that. That'd be a great utopia if every city in the world was, like these great European cities where people are riding their bikes. They don't even wear a helmet. You see a bike rack, and in a spot where we'd only put, let's say, 2 bikes, they put 5 bikes. They put a bike on top of the rack. They lay bikes on top of bikes and, lock bikes to bikes, or however they do it over there. I've seen all these wonderful pictures that are amazing. And I think as we get passionate about the things that we need to be passionate about, like we go back and we choose our 2 or 3, maybe at most 5 things that we get super passionate about. We're going to learn. One of the things we're going to all learn, and we're going to learn from each other if sustainability is not one of our passionate checklist things. We're going to learn that we need to be checking our stuff and asking for more sustainable stuff. Because when we start asking, the politicians start writing the laws the way we want them. And one of the things that some states have been doing is it's called producer responsibility laws, where they charge the producer of the waste for that waste. So it gets people like Coca-Cola to stop using plastic and maybe use a recyclable glass or use cans or because they're getting charged for what they dump on everybody else. Whereas 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they would just dump it on everybody else, and it was up to you and I to just deal with it. And Coca-Cola didn't pay anything for it, so they just used the thing that was the cheapest, lightest, easiest to get to you.
And what's that called? What was that name again?
Producer responsibility.
Producer responsibility.
Something.
Okay.
And they've had very good success with it in the state of Maine.
Okay.
The state of Colorado is starting to do stuff like that. One of the largest recycling, EcoCycle, which is down in Boulder, has come out with a electric garbage truck. So it's kind of like we're getting there. And up here we have transport. They're getting a handful of electric buses that can go all day.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're learning. And hopefully it gets to the people who are kind of like apathetic that the system's going to get better.
Yeah. I guess what I'm curious about is those efforts you do with the students to make sure that waste is diverted responsibly. Does that feel like you're almost undercut a little bit when on the broad scale where waste is going to the landfill and then where our recycling is not going to places where it gets recycled? So does that feel like it kind of undercuts your efforts right now?
One of the things I like about college students is, for the first time in their life, they have nobody making the rules for them. They're not living in a home where they're not the leading head figure of the home. So now they have to make their own rules. They've kind of been steered in a direction by their parents to say, hey, eat your veggies, eat your fruit. Hey, maybe this is where we buy our stuff because it's better for the environment. But now they have to make their own rules. So when my group gets out there, the zero waste team gets out there, we do things like lug your mug, and we'll bring out coffee, and we'll say, we have no container for it. You got to bring your own container. Maybe the first time they see us, they're like, oh, bummer, I didn't bring a container. But the second time, they're all about free coffee because they got to get up at 8 a.m. and they're used to getting up at noon when they were living with mom and dad. So they start bringing their own container, but maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but when they do it 5 or 6 times, one of the things in their backpack is that mug along with their books, along with their notebook, because they might get that free coffee again. And then after they've gotten that free coffee enough times, then they bring it to McDonald's, they bring it to Starbucks, they bring it to the pizza place to get their soda now.
It starts to become a habit.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that. It's cool to help them make the rules for their life when they're kind of laying that framework now that mom and dad. They're like, well, we kind of didn't like that I got in trouble. So what can I do differently to have a better rule?
Yeah.
In my world.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a minimalist then? It kind of sounds like you have those values.
I have a lot of the values. I wouldn't consider myself a minimalist. If you've seen the movie about the minimalist, they claim that they travel with only 30 items. I have way more than 30 items. I have a little bit of the compulsion, the shopping compulsion that a lot of Americans have. But I've stopped that. But I still have 50 million T-shirts. So I have enough T-shirts for the rest of my life. And maybe I need to get rid of a few of them, because in the morning when I open my closet and I have 40 shirts to choose from, it takes me 10 minutes. And that's also draining on me to take more than 30 seconds to just choose just a T-shirt to put on for the day.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I like is a lot of people have, one of the minimalist things is people have come to the conclusion it's okay to wear the same shirt multiple days in a row. It's okay if that's all you've got, because you don't need 30 shirts and everything.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I'm also learning, we talk about it when we talk about minimalism, and sustainability. When you buy that shirt, you're not just buying that shirt, you're also buying the working conditions for the workers. You're also buying all those toxic chemicals they use. And so I'm kind of researching, like, where'd that come from? What are those people? And if I don't pay for that, then that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
If I pay an extra $5 and have it made by a college student, went down to the thrift store and repainted a shirt, and I pay an extra $5 for the shirt, am I getting better working conditions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I getting better environmental conditions? Because I know, for example, I've seen in the animal rights world, I've seen like how they get to making leather and stuff, and that's extremely toxic to all their hands and all those chemicals they use to dye it and stiffen it and stuff like that.
Yeah. So to speak, voting with your wallet, right?
Yeah,
and that's especially applicable, or that practice is especially huge in the fast fashion, like you were saying
and I think
earlier, right?
You got to vote more places than one. In your wallet's one place to vote. The ballot is another place to vote. And I think of activism as being a circle. I'm just one little stone on that circle, but the circle needs everybody on that circle. You know, even if it's the person who's advocating for better gun rights. I might not want guns, but they're advocating for better gun legislation, and that's necessary to keep that circle together. And once that circle breaks apart, the whole community dies.
I think those are two really great ways to think about voting, right? With your wallet and then with your ballot. I think another one that we've kind of touched on right now throughout this conversation is voting with your time, where you put your body and where you spend your time,
definitely.
right? And that's
100%.
It's not voting in like the normal sense, but it is a decision you make, right?
You're able to talk to the right people and have the people who maybe know a little bit more than you know things a little differently than you know. Not necessarily more or less, maybe a little differently than you. Yeah. And you guys come to what might be better than what we have now, and then you take that knowledge and, if you tell 5 people, they tell 5 people. Like when we have our lug our mugs, maybe they don't learn it the first time, but after a while it becomes a habit, and then they go to the Starbucks, and now they're saying, instead of just getting the coffee, they're saying, no, here, fill mine. I started doing some of that myself. I got into using an app called Plastic Score.
Okay.
And basically what you do is you rate businesses when you make a purchase. If I were to go buy a coffee, I rate them. I say, hey, did I get a receipt? Did I get a non-recyclable cup? How did I get my menu? Was my menu on the wall, or did I get a paper menu that I ended up throwing away? Do they have compost? Do they have recycling? Whatever it might be, I rate them. And I saw where I was failing was on takeout. But why was I failing? I wasn't failing because of the business. Maybe it might have been partly the business. But I know they're doing what's cheapest. Yeah. They're giving me a plastic cup that's cheap to give me to get my soda, and I walk out, and they're done with me. They got their money, and that's all they care about. But I took the cup. I actively took the cup. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes. I took it and I filled it, and I left with it. So I endorsed that plastic cup. And I noticed when I brought my own cup, the score in the app went up a little bit. I'm like, oh. And so I did it. I want the score to be as high as possible because, I want my favorite restaurants to get the best scores, so that everybody goes to my favorite restaurants, whatever those might be. And I want everybody else to get people to go to their favorite restaurants. So I know in Fort Collins we have way too many restaurants, so we cut down maybe, and I have fewer choices, but they're better. The quality's higher. And I saw that when I left the restaurants, it was things that I could control. I could change the score, so I started bringing my own stuff. Now it's pretty common. Yeah. I always have my utensils, a container, and a cup. So.
Yeah, that's cool. What's that app called again?
It's called Plastic Score.
Plastic Score. Awesome.
There's other similar ones, and they're trying to work out what's the best way to rate these places, so we get an accurate score based on sustainability.
Yeah, so it's like a sustainability score basically for.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's kind of like sustainability Yelp almost.
And there's other ones where you can write the restaurants or the businesses emails, and they'll do it for you. So through their system they'll track all the letters that you write the different, and they'll populate. They'll have questions that you can answer, and so they'll pre-populate the email,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It makes it really quick. I can just say, oh yeah, they had recycling. I like that.
Yeah.
They didn't give me napkins. I like that.
Yeah.
They didn't give me utensils. I like that.
Yeah.
Or they gave me plastic utensils. I didn't like that. And then it'll make an email, and I can send an email. But they keep track of all that responses.
Mm-hmm.
And when the company views the email and tells me like, hey, they viewed it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they responded to it.
That's cool.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. So a lot of people are thinking about how do we shift behavior, and I think that's a cool way to see it. Not just behavior itself. But
Yeah.
how do we shift it?
Yeah. And do you think that's like if you're going to choose what primary way to go about changes is shifting behavior, which would be shifting it with just people, right? By targeting people on the individual basis and not trying to target a state, right?
Especially through things like these apps, we are targeting people individually because,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
saw that my scores were failing because of things that I have a lot of control over. Maybe the restaurant, maybe I'm rating the restaurant. I want them to do something different. I want them to give me a reusable cup. I want them to encourage me to bring back my reusable cup.
Yeah.
But I can't guarantee that they'll do that. But I can guarantee that I can bring my own cup. So I guess indirectly the app did change on a personal level.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you?
And that wasn't the goal. That's not the goal of the app, but it worked.
Yeah.
And I think with the increase in population, we need to be more conscious of resource usage. We got all the resources. When you build a home built for 50 people and there's only 2 people living in the home,
Yeah.
that's not a really good use of resources because you're also heating a home for 50. You're cooling a home for 50.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 2 of you or
Yeah.
3 of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you had 50 in that home and we didn't have 48 homeless people, that may be a good use of that home.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to be conscious of how we're more so than we were when there weren't as many people and the earth didn't take such a big hit.
Yeah. Yeah. What else do you think?
And I think every little action that we do that's kind of toxic is kind of a knife to the earth. The earth can take a few knives here and there, and it does. We eat a plant or something, and the plant grows back. So it sustained a knifing, but it came back from that, or like a tree gets eaten by the giraffe in the savannah, but the tree grows back. So it's withstood the toxic, but we can't like have 50 giraffes on one tree,
Mm-hmm.
which we're getting to the point where we have 50 giraffes on one tree. By buying shirts, we're only going to buy like the Avalanche just won the Stanley Cup. Everybody has to have that shirt that says 2022 on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how long are they going to wear that? Maybe after next season, maybe 2 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens to it? It gets donated, it ends up in their closet, and it just sits there, and they buy the next shirt because now the Yankees won the World Series, so they got to have the World Series shirt. Well, I can't wear both shirts,
Yeah.
so we got to be careful.
Yeah. What do you?
And I think the kids, how we teach our kids, is important too.
What do you say about the types of people that would describe humanity as a type of cancer disease on the earth? What would you think about that type of mindset?
I think we're getting close to humanity being a cancer,
Okay.
just being out of control and just getting to the point where nobody has any hope that they do what they brings them the most happiness, what gets them the most. We're getting close to that point, I think, but we have when we have the college kids coming up with student sustainability groups, we had a sustainability little it was kind of like a little, I wouldn't call it a festival, it was only like 5 or 6 different little student groups, but what brought me hope was that there was a student group that was all about algae, and they wanted to have like almost like algae solar panels almost kind of thing, like they wanted to do like these things that I couldn't even imagine thinking of with algae.
Yeah.
And that brings me hope that there's still people that want to change the world for the better.
Yeah.
And make really cool things that I couldn't even imagine. And 5 years ago, you would have been laughed at if you could decide you wanted to grow algae to filter the water and stuff like that. You would have been like, that's not possible. But now, like, college kids are thinking about it, and they even had a prototype product. They said, well, this is just like our first test. We want to get this better, and we're going to actually get it out there in another year or 2 before we graduate.
Yeah. So you think we might be towing close to that line, but you seem pretty optimistic with the youth that are coming up, that are going to put a positive.
I think the way we teach our students, as opposed to, we've always been, I think we've been, when I was in school, we teach kids how to teach themselves, or give them the tools to learn on their own. And I think that's a new concept. And as long as we continue to do that, and we encourage kids to get involved beyond the classroom and stuff like that, play sports. I learned a lot from playing sports, get student groups, and if they think of something that they want to make a student group out of, make the student group out of that.
Yeah.
Like CSU's got a bass fishing team, and I recently, a couple of years, well, it was about a year ago, I went with my friend's kid to introduction night for high school. And that's one of the things they said. If you're passionate about something, you want to make a student group, make a student group. We'll help you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need more of, giving the kids the tools rather than the actual knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Give them the tools to learn it themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're being so creative that they're coming up with solutions that I'm kind of locked into a certain mind thinking after so long.
Yeah.
That I'm not being that creative.
Yeah. What do you say to the fact that there will be people that have differing opinions? And while I think we both agree that people should do more and not sit on their butts as much, so to speak, right? But at the same time, different people are going to have different outlooks on how to approach the world, and also
I think we need that, because with creativity, one person might be locked into something, or one person might be wanting to design something, but they have no question to answer.
Yeah.
That when you get somebody you get the person who's maybe apathetic to the world, saying, "Oh, I can't lose the weight. I watch 10 hours of TV a day. It's so hard to go to work. I drink so much caffeine, whatever. But then you have somebody else who can answer that question for them and say, "Hey, look, how about you watch TV on your treadmill? How about you, whatever the solution might be?" And they go, "Wow." And they start getting creative, and we have to foster this environment where we give you the tools, you come up with the solutions, as opposed to giving you the solutions. And then when the problem comes, we're like, we can't answer that problem. All we have is solution. We got to have the tools. Yeah. And I think that the city's also doing a good part of that. We're trying to have all these different little festivals and stuff like that, and having the network happening. Yeah. Yeah. And even here, we're talking, and this could breed to something totally different than what you ever thought your podcast might be. Yeah. 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 And I was thinking, why not this podcast sometimes be at street level, as opposed to in a silent room, maybe more like, NBC Nightly News when they're giving the news and they're in the middle of Ukraine. Yeah. And the guy's wearing a bulletproof vest, standing next to a soldier who's trying to defend his village. Yeah. Kind of thing. That's kind of cool too. Yeah. Yeah. The boots on the ground. Yeah. I think it's all cool. And, and when we have the YouTubers that are recording things in progress. Yeah. As they do it, like my friend when he takes his cameras out there and he's riding his bike and then he's flying a drone at the same time in the middle of Mexico, and he's got these gorgeous views. It's inspiring that we can get more people to love to make change for the better. With all this technology we have. It's really fun. It's opened it up. I mean, I was able to purchase all these things by myself, and then set this up by myself. And and we also have ways that people can organically survive by doing that. We have things like YouTube that allow people to do what they want to do. Yeah. Yeah. And support it. Mm-hmm. Whereas 10 years ago this wouldn't have been possible, because it costs you money to do all this. But now if this ends up on podcast.com or whatever, or on YouTube, so you put out those commercials, and I might support whatever is in the commercial because it looks like a good product. Yeah. I see Big Lots a lot, so I might support Big Lots. I don't know, but I get to see things I wouldn't have seen, and it's inspiring. What do you think is a major problem in Fort Collins right now? Because you've been here for 20 years, you said, right? A major problem? I don't consider anything really a problem. But one thing I might see is that there's a disconnect between the people who want to be sustainable and the people who are not sustainable. Because the people who are not sustainable say, I can't make a change, so I'm just going to do what I want to do. And one of the things I've been noticing lately, it's summertime, and I notice this just about every year, is people watering. High noon, they're watering. It's kind of like, well, you're doing what you want to do, but that's not what's best for the community.
Yeah.
And now if I come along and I teach you, and you put in that $100 system, that's only a one-time cost. Now you can water 2 a.m. and you're using half as much water. But now we can have 3 nice cool yards with flowers and everything like that, or I teach you not to grow the grass. But then you come along and teach me, hey, I don't need to get rid of my car because it broke down, and then you can fix it.
Yeah.
Or if I just got that oil change a little bit sooner, it would keep my car running longer, or whatever. We have to we have to learn to teach each other. Not just go to people who say, oh, I'm the teacher, I'm the yoga master, or I'm the barista, or I'm whatever, I got that cool title. We all have that cool title. It's just we got to figure out what that is.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is a more connected and tight-knit community, right?
Right.
Where
we
a lot more people are plugged in.
If we could get rid of garages, when we pulled in at home and we got out of the car, we waved to the neighbor. Well, after you wave 5 times, you want to learn why that neighbor wears the funky Hawaiian shirts every day in the middle of Fort Collins. You're going to go over there and ask him and say, why do you wear funky, cool Hawaiian shirts? Well, because I surf and I'm from Hawaii and I go to Hawaii every summer, whatever it might be. You learn something about him, then you might pull a little bit into your own world that makes you more connected, more sustainable, more community oriented.
Yeah.
So maybe now your neighbor teaches you, gives you maps about Hawaii, tells you, hey, there's this cool hostel. So your trip to Hawaii costs half as much, but you take that trip to Hawaii, which you wouldn't have taken normally. And so he's gotten power, you got power, you've empowered each other. We got to empower all each other.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah.
I like that. I really do. What do you think?
That's become more important as we we have the landfill running out. We want to keep things running longer, use the skills of people who know how to fix things, and we're running out of water. People who know how to have a cool looking yard without water. All kinds of things. There's all kinds of people. They're out there. It's just I think they don't have that certification, that degree from school, or the city hasn't said, hey, you're our new city yard expert. That they don't feel that they're the expert, but they are. And everybody's an expert in something.
Yeah. And so we just got to...
Even the 2-year-old's an expert in something.
Yeah.
Might be cheese sandwiches, but that 2-year-old's an expert in cheese sandwiches.
Yeah. So just get everybody plugged in with each other, right?
Right,
Especially when
totally.
these issues arise in our future, like the landfill you're saying, and different other issues,
right? Like when that kid gets out on the sidewalk selling lemonade, we got to get the bike riders riding by and buying the lemonade, and that kid's at the lemonade stand expert.
Yeah.
Get the experts and the people who need the experts together.
Yeah.
And we all have something to contribute.
What would you say to the people that would maybe tell you they don't have time to do that? They don't have time to wave to the neighbor. They don't have time to talk to anybody new.
Well, the bottom line is when you have that dollar, when you die, that dollar is no good. And so if we make it contribute to the community, that dollar is irrelevant.
Yeah.
They always say that he who dies with the most stuff wins, but he who dies with the most stuff still dies. And we can't have the mentality anymore that the more I take, the better I am. It's not about me anymore. It's about the community.
Yeah.
And if the community allows me to be an expert, I feel valued. I don't need the money to feel valued, and I want to feel valued. I know everybody else wants to feel valued, but how do we get them to feel valued?
What would you say to the people that maybe have the time but would say no to trying to do any of these things? What would you? They
got to find that thing they're passionate about. Maybe it's they got to try a whole bunch of things that they may or may not be passionate about.
Well, they might have passion, but they just don't see the point in meeting new people. Let's say. What about those people?
I think when they see other people doing it and they see the possibilities, they will. They might be they might not be apathetic. They might be like the late adopter kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm a late adopter on technology, like phones and all that stuff. When
Yeah.
I see other people getting value out of it and doing something cool, like when texting came along, I was like, I'm never gonna text. Like I don't see a point of it. But then when I saw the value in it, I started texting. So when I see a value of somebody having a garden that's not just Kentucky bluegrass that needs a lot of water in a desert, I started doing something about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I saw that my rocks weren't all the rocks that the HOA had given me, I said, well, I'm going to take a little bit of those rocks, move them out of the way, and put something where I'm feeding the wildlife, I'm feeding the bees, and they're providing me they're providing me the Discovery Channel without having to turn on my TV. And that's blowing my mind. Like it's crazy. I see something new and I text my mom, like, and I know she's had a squirrel a million times. When I see my first squirrel, I'm like, hey mom, I just got a squirrel. And she's like, isn't that beautiful? I'm like, that's totally like, and she's seen him a million times and I've seen him a million times at her place, but now it's at my place. And like, I felt empowered that I brought that squirrel to my place for some reason. But I left out water, I left out food, and I think we need to just empower people to be the expert.
Yeah. So
without having to have that official structure to it.
So you'd say the antidote to the people that maybe won't budge is to just get together the people that will, and it'll be almost infectious of people getting together.
Oh, definitely, definitely. It'll be a good cancer, I guess. We've got to be a good cancer on each other.
Yeah.
You know, and when we stand out there and we protest, maybe we do activism for very ideas that are very strongly opposed.
Yeah.
Find the common ground. Say, hey, we want less cars on the road.
Yeah.
But how do we want, So if we get maybe a smaller road and a bigger bike lane, there'll be more bikes, but you can still drive and you can drive faster even though you're never going to give up your car. Don't you want that? I'm sure you want that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to advocate for my bike lane. I'm going to advocate for you to have,
Yeah.
maybe fewer stop signs, maybe more roundabouts, I'll advocate for you to get through the town faster, even though I absolutely hate your car and you hate my bike.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna play together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
always think there's a little bit of truth on each of the extremisms, so to speak, on the spectrum, right? I don't think anybody, if they're extremists, is telling the whole story, and there's some nuance in that, but for the majority speaking, and I think the best course is trying to take the best parts of those very periphery ideas and then finding that middle ground between the two and moving forward between that, right? Does that make sense?
That's part of it, but once we start saying, hey, they're against my idea, we don't budge, and they say they're against my idea, they don't budge.
Yeah.
We become two brick walls. Once we say, we're both human, see what your needs are, see what my needs are, and hey, our needs are kind of the same. We want to get through town faster. We want to get through town safer. I absolutely hate gasoline. You absolutely hate rubber. So you're gonna advocate for my bike lane because it gets me out of your car lane. I'm gonna advocate for your car lane, or I'm gonna advocate for a few less stop signs because that makes you go faster and gets you out of my lane fast.
Yeah.
We can work together and come to a solution that benefits us both.
What do you think what does it take to see the other side? Because there's a bit of an effort to get out of your own
definitely an effort
corner and to see the other person's corner, right?
Kind of.
What does that look
there's
like?
an effort to negotiating. It's not.
Yeah. Well, negotiating, but then also just understanding.
You can just run at it as a knife fight, stab the person, and get what you want. But that's not the best solution. There's an effort to negotiating. That's a skill. That's a real skill.
Well, also negotiating, but then also just knowing the other person's tactics inside as well, right?
Well, that's the only way you negotiate.
Yeah.
Effectively, is you have to know their wants and needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
that's hard.
Yeah, I think.
And I always look back, and I think that's one of my weakest skills is negotiating, and that's one of the skills as a human rights, as an animal rights, as a people rights activist. That's one of the skills I think I'm lacking. But I always think back when I want to try to improve that skill. I was out in California with about 1,000 of my closest friends, I guess, as you say, when you gather with a huge group of people. And we were out at Sunrise Farms in Petaluma, California. And Sunrise Farms is the largest egg layer in the state of California. And they do Amazon, Whole Foods supplier. But the picture in my mind is my buddy standing in the middle of the road. We're all on one side, all the activists are on one side, all the cops and the farm workers are on the other side, and we're two brick walls, but he's trying to go between the two and say, where's the common ground? And he got to a point, and they said, we'll let you guys go in there and with a camera, but I got to go in there too. And we're like, all right, we'll agree to that we can go in there and document what's going on in there with a reporter and a cameraman. And you can come in with us so you know what's going on. And then the farmer was like, well, I don't agree with this, because if we agree that you can take out every unhealthy chicken, you're going to take out all of them. So it kind of broke down a little bit, but we were getting somewhere. And I think the next time around, it's going to be even closer to getting to a solution.
Can you back up on that story more? Like, can you tell more about the lead up to that and what it was all about?
Way back in the 7 years ago.
Okay.
Or 7.5 years ago, I was hanging out with a group at Colorado State University called Rams Organizing for Animal Rights. And in my mind, I was an animal lover. But in reality, I really was doing them a disservice by not being a vegan. But I had some of those tendencies. And so I hung out with them because I knew they were animal lovers too. And I was just soaking up all the knowledge from them. But I would always introduce myself because I felt bad for the situation. I would always introduce myself as a group vegetarian, because I was vegetarian after another series of events. And then we ended up and I had already gotten my agricultural degree, so I had a good understanding of how the system works, how farmers work, how the cattle and all that. Not great, because it wasn't in animals, but it was enough that I knew something. And we ended up at a sanctuary for farmed animals, and these animals were just like extremely peaceful. And I'm like, as a quote unquote self-titled cowboy, this isn't how I expect them to be. Like how they get to, and I kind of like how they get to be this way. Like what made them this calm and collected, and like, because we had 4 or 5 people laying across, a cow that had horns and was 1,500 pounds and didn't care what we did at all. Could have just like turned her head or his head, and 2 or 3 of us would have been dead. Like no sweat. The cow wouldn't even have had to stand up. And at the end, after we were there, that very same day, I was like, something's different here, and I need to change something, because I liked what I saw. I absolutely loved what I saw there, of the animals being friendly and all that. And so I went vegan, and I just started getting deeper into the system. And I found a group, some friends that were in. I befriended some people that were in a group called Direct Action Everywhere, which has been rated one of the top 10 groups that's going to take down animal agriculture, and we're not going to stop until we do. And we get together once a year for a week, about 1,000 or more of us, and we disrupt the system as best we can with 1,000 people.
Okay.
And that's one of the things. That's 1 year. We ended up going to Sunrise Farms in Petaluma, California. Okay. And we took out 30 chickens out of we took out, I think it was 32 chickens out of one of the barns, and 31 of them survived that day and are still alive. I hope are still alive today. Okay. But we documented it all, and one of the things we try to do is get people to understand what the system is really like. It's not just a cool carton of eggs in the store. There's a lot more to it than just that, and we want people to start researching that and understanding that.
Can you put more detail to that? Like, what was it like going to the farm and negotiating and getting the chickens and moving them and everything like that?
One of the things I do when I show up to situations like this, now that I've been doing it for 7 years, I know I have a little bit of expertise. So I try to help the people that are newer have a good experience. So I try to do things so I can create situations that are good for the picture. For example, like we go out to the slaughterhouse out in Greeley, which is I think the second largest slaughterhouse in the United States, the largest cattle slaughterhouse in the United States. I'll try to stop the trucks so they can get a good picture of all the animals on the truck, kind of thing, and they have a good experience. I got arrested for that once, but and I'm okay with that because I believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about having a community that supports itself. You also believe in what you're doing, and you're bolder, and you do bigger actions. Like when I go to these conferences and everything, I know that if I'm arrested, I'm going to get out of jail somehow, some way, because there's 1,000 other people, or 800 people that were with me that are willing to help me get out of jail. Whereas if I go and do it myself, I don't know how long I'm going to be in jail. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a phone call. I don't know if mom and dad are even going to know I'm in jail. And I don't know who's going to know if I'm going to, but when there's 800 people and they watch me get arrested, they know where I'm going. They know how to get me out. They'll try to get me out sooner, faster, cheaper. So we're all more emboldened to do bigger actions when we have that community, no matter what it is. And that's how we get to go to these. Yeah. We go to these farms and we go on them. But we went on this farm, and there's a good Vice video on there where they filmed some of the actions that happened at Sunrise Farms. But then they also include at the end, they come back a few months later and interview our lead our negotiator, our lead guy on the action, and they interviewed the farmer, but separately. So they're talking real candidly, and it's really cool to see that they're talking honestly and openly. They're not hiding anything. But I went on there, and one of the things I like to take a lot of photos and document stuff, so maybe I can use those photos to show other people, to get them curious and get them asking questions. But I saw, the dead chickens. I saw what they consider free range, where they have 2 feet by 2 feet of green grass, and they have to have access to it. But they're so freaked out they never even go to that. They'll sometimes try to set up a little part of their farm so that we see something that's better than what we know is out there, but we're smart enough and we've seen enough footage that we know that they're kind of setting it up a little bit, so that we say, hey, that's a good farm. Why'd we rescue from a good farm when we could have rescued from a horrible farm? But sometimes we know it's set up. But we got on the farm, and there was a team that was going to go into the barns. I wasn't part of that team, and they were going to take out chickens. Well, and we do the full hazmat with Tyvek suits and everything. So one of the things we like to do is be able to say in court that we did everything we could to not damage the place, whether it be disease, whether it be violence, whether it be, breaking things. So we don't do that. But they went in there and they documented it. They had a cameraman go in with as part of our team, and they showed what it was like in there. And the farmers got mad and angry at us, and we did our thing, and we came out with 32 chickens, and 31 survived the day. But we had a lot of crazy, cool footage of it that we can now. And since I've been there now, I have a story to tell, like I'm telling now, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I saw this video." I can say, "I was there. I'm in the pictures.
Yeah.
I took pictures myself."
Yeah. What is it like doing that? Like, is it kind of nerve-wracking?
Well, the first time you do it, it's very nerve-wracking because you don't know how the police are going to handle it. Once you've done it a few times, there's power in numbers. When there's more people than there are cops, the cops have to decide, like, what rules are they going to enforce. We have all these laws, and they're not all good laws, and so you have to violate the bad laws, and that's what we're doing. We're violating some of the bad laws. But the cops now have a decision to make. If we enforce, say, I don't know, trespassing, how are we going to enforce that? Because we can't arrest 800 people. So what are we going to, Now they have some decisions to make. And we also ask them in the heat of the moment, do you want to arrest us? Or do you want to help us end the animal abuse? We know they're seeing it too. Like, they're not looking at a different farm than we are. They're not seeing us come out with dead chickens. They're not seeing us come out with, and not seeing a dead animal.
So
we know they have a choice to make too.
Is there a negotiation there?
There's some negotiation, but it's also we try to plant. We ask them straight to their face, do you want to be supporting this abuse? Or do you want to support cleaning the system up? And we know some of them are just doing their job, doing what their superior tells them to do. But at the end of the day, they're going to go home, and that's not a normal day for them when they saw 800 people at a farm breaking the law intentionally.
Yeah.
Not breaking a law they didn't know existed, or breaking a law that everybody breaks. Like speeding down a road, everybody breaks the speeding law. I just happened to go 7 miles an hour over, and he got me for 7 instead of 5, whatever, But this is now like their intention. These activists are intentional about it, and now when I go home, when the officer goes home at the end of the day, he's probably thinking like they were very, very intentional. They wanted to be breaking those laws. They wanted to be on that farm. They wanted to be trespassing, and he did that with intention. I got a decision to be making now when that officer goes home. He's got to think about. He's got a lot to think about.
Yeah. So what's the dynamic like between you have a group of 800 people, you have police, and you have the owners, and then I'm assuming you probably have a team of people going in.
It's very
right?
intense. It's
what's
very
that
intense
dynamic like
in the moment?
Especially
it's very intense. But the whole thing is, we didn't get to that point. That's not the first time we've been there.
Yeah.
There's been other groups that have documented maybe those same farms, those same kind of conditions. We've asked the courts, we've asked the politicians, we've asked the farm owner, hey, this needs to change. And everybody said, no. So now we're doing the last thing we know we can do, and that's using our human power and getting in there.
So what does that look like? Can you paint the scene for me, I guess is what I'm trying to get at?
Well, the way this one went down, Mercy for Animals had already been into the same exact farm and done an investigation, and we came along. I'm putting multiple incidences together, but this might be the way it happens. We come in, and maybe we send a group in there. We bring a van in there really quickly and send 10 people in there right before those 800 come, and they get to mill around before anybody knows what's really going on, before anybody, the farmers or the police or the other law enforcement know what's going on, and they pull out some animals. They take out some lives and save some lives that we can use to educate later on. Say, hey, that farm down there, this dude was part of that. And then later in the day, we come on there and we say, look, we go in there with the intention of shutting them down permanently, but
what does that look like if you're to succeed? What does that mean exactly?
Well, we know the officers aren't going to allow 800 people to stand in the road, stand in front of a farm, block it off a business, keep a business from doing their job, because they're there to protect money, and they want that business to be doing whatever that business is doing as long as it's legal. Whether it's right or wrong, they don't care. They're just there to keep that business doing legal activity. So we show up as quickly as we can show up, and we all hop out of vans, we all hop out of buses, and we hurry on down to the farm, and we try to save even more lives, get on that farm, and we're documenting as much as we can to show, because the industry won't let you see. They're not going to show the inside of a barn that's that gross and disease-ridden and dust-filled and cannibalism and injuries and death.
Yeah. Are you able...
disease. And so we go in there as quickly as possible, and then finally the farmers say, well, they're not able to negotiate with us to say, stay off our farm. They end up calling the cops, and then it's kind of like it's a power struggle at that point, and we're there until we're forced to leave.
Yeah. Are you able to speak to exactly what you did while you were there? Can you speak on that?
Up until this point, I've only ever been there as a witness, but I've actually gone. We do it in teams.
Okay.
We have a green, a yellow, and a red team.
Okay.
All teams are arrestable. All teams are participating in illegal activity as far as the law is concerned.
Okay.
But the green team stays in areas where they're not. They're most legal.
Okay.
The yellow team gets kind of in the middle. They get into an illegal situation. They're not actually the ones rescuing. The red team is the team that rescues. And I've always been on the yellow team, so I've been witnessing the rescues.
Gotcha.
And the red team is the one that goes in the barns. They're the ones that open up cages and actually take out beings and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But still, everybody else is still super important because we're all arrestable.
Yeah.
And when a cop only has 10 people to arrest, he's going to arrest all 10, and he's going to leave them in prison, and they're not going to do anything about it. When there's 500 or more people to arrest that are they can arrest, they're going to be a little more picky choosy on who they arrest. And when they know that we're prepared for the arrest, we know what happens when we're in prison. We know to keep quiet. We know how to defeat the prisoner's dilemma game that most people don't know how to defeat. We don't talk to the cops. We know how to we have basically professional negotiator. There's a few people on our team that we've done a lot of training for all this, that they know we're not rookies. And so the cops are a little different in the way they interact with us. And so, but we try to use it to our advantage and expose it. That's our biggest thing, is we want to expose these places of violence and get the people who say, I'm just buying humane meat, I'm just buying it from the local farmer, but it's still the same slaughterhouse, it's still the same egg farm, and it's all violent.
Okay. You said this was documented. Could people be directed to somewhere where they can see this stuff? Is there a place they can look?
When we have our week-long conferences, there's usually people we designate to be professional photographers, but anybody can take photos.
Yeah.
And one of the things I try to do is I try to download all these photos, especially from the ones who are doing have a little more professional knowledge and can get the coloring right, and maybe they turn it to black and white, the ones that go inside the barns and get that perfect shot of the animal and everything like that. So I have thousands of pictures of these different the different years I've been part of these different actions.
Yeah.
But when you go in by yourself and when you actually do a rescue, sometimes before we have these week-long these weeks of action and trainings and demos, and people have already been into these farms in small groups, maybe in groups of 5. We even train people how to go in there if you just want to bring out an animal, and we document some of those too if we pull those out as a story. But if those stories never go out, we end up destroying our photos for those. So.
Wait.
So for the actions I've been on to that we've never released the story, I don't save the photos.
Gotcha.
I don't want them out there. I don't want to be arrested for it.
Okay.
So but some of those times we'll use that as a bigger story, like when you go on to, maybe we want to expose Farmer John's, which is a Smithfield pig slaughterhouse. Maybe we want to expose them and bring out a story right around 4th of July, because that's a big hot dog holiday. Yeah. Something like that. So we'll go in on their farms and we'll expose their farms and stuff like that. But yeah, we're out there. We're not shy about what we do. So we're out there on YouTube and stuff like that.
Okay. What would somebody search to find these things, just so it's easier?
Well, if you want our videos, we're Direct Action Everywhere. Okay. All over YouTube. But there's a couple videos that a group called Condition 1 has done, and I've had trouble finding them recently. I don't know if they still exist. But there's a group called Condition 1, and they're known for making VR videos. And they're also willing to go into illegal situations like Vice and those kind of newsy type. Yeah. Won't continue on the action once it becomes illegal. They'll stay on legal grounds. But Condition 1 has followed us in on a couple actions, and they're in VR. We have one of the largest CAFO, confined animal feeding operation in the world, which is owned by Smithfield out in Milford, Utah. Yeah. We have a VR of that, and there was a really cool VR of a egg farm. And walking down, you can see how massive these barns are. It looks like it's on a loop. It's just massive.
What is the line between making a documentary out of film that was taken of illegal action and taking of legal action? Like, why would you hold that film back if it would give you more publicity? I know that there's the legal part of it, but what's the nature of that? Because to me, you guys are already committing it, and so the documenting it and putting that out there would really show people, right? So why hold that back?
You're talking about when we go in there and rescue like a single animal and it never turns into anything huge. Why not release it? Sometimes we will release it. Sometimes we it wasn't a big enough story to
put out.
really to put out there.
Okay.
And so we saved the animal,
Okay.
and we say the animal came
Yeah.
from a horrible situation, but we might not tell you where that animal came from.
Okay. So
So
is it more like a thought of telling a good story over worrying about the legalese of it?
That's huge.
Is that
There's
more?
a lot of it. There's a lot of it. It's telling a really good story,
Okay.
telling a truthful story,
Yeah.
and so that people see what the industry won't show you.
Gotcha.
Like there are people, and we don't do it, but there's people called undercover investigators, and they're extremely powerful, and we're extremely thankful for a lot of the work they've done. Like Mercy for Animals does that, and what they'll do is they'll get their investigators employed by these slaughterhouses or employed by these farms or whatever, but every day they go to work, they have cameras on them, and they're recording all this stuff and recording all the violence that goes on, because maybe there was some report that pigs were being kicked in the slaughterhouse on a continual basis. So they get a job in the slaughterhouse and then document it. But that can be almost, they're risking their life sometimes for that.
Yeah.
Because if the other slaughterhouse workers find out that their actions are being documented for legality purposes, they might want to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at the very least have them arrested or something like that, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And then and a lot of times these people are vegans, like myself, and at lunchtime they'll give them a burger and say, "Hey, have some burgers with us. If you don't want to die, you got to eat the burger."
Yeah.
Even though that's against your morals.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, they do it. There's been.
Are there?
So working in like a slaughterhouse is one of the hardest jobs in the United States to get.
I believe that. Yeah. I heard somewhere that has one of the highest turnover rates. So many people.
Extremely high turnover rate. And it's also high drug use. They get PTSD at a higher rate than military. They also have there's a lot of violence. Like they bring home violence at home, because if you're using a knife and it becomes second nature to slit an animal's throat.
Yeah.
What's going to stop you from doing it at home? Maybe.
Yeah. They have a higher PTSD rate than the military.
Uh-huh.
Really? Wow.
Well, on a day-to-day basis, the military's not always seeing violence. A lot of times they're training, they're learning to be heroes and all that. Whereas in a slaughterhouse, you're just another person trying to slit throats as fast as you can slit throats or whatever your one little piece of the entire puzzle is.
Yeah. Are there specific laws you can point to that are bad animal laws, you would say? Like, can you name any?
Well, the law we're trying to overturn a few laws that will basically make the animal agriculture almost illegal. One of them is the right to rescue, the fact that we go into these farms without permission and take out animals. We'd have every animal out of there as fast as we can get them out of there if it was legal. In the state of California, we introduced a bill and had a California legislator, introduce it to ban the expansion and new building of slaughterhouses and factory farms. A factory farm is anything larger than about 300 head, 300 individual animals. And they were all gung-ho for it, and they at the end they turned it into another study instead of actually wanting to make it a law. And so there's a lot of dark money in politics, and it corrupts the system quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because you can buy what you want, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I can buy the fact that my vehicle might not have very good gas mileage, or I can buy whatever.
Yeah. Are there efforts that you can point to of proper agricultural farming that people could turn to if they still wanted to eat meat? Are there options like that out there? Do you think?
Not with animals, because how do you kill somebody that wants to live? That's always the question we come back to. You can't kill somebody that wants to live, and you can't. And when you kill all these food animals, they're still toddlers in human terms. But there is a process called regenerative agriculture.
Yeah. And
it was featured in the film Kiss the Ground. And if you watch that movie Kiss the Ground, there's a character in there, and you'll remember him. Nobody ever forgets this guy, because I can't forget him since I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie twice now. And he goes around with the National Resource Conservation Service, which teaches people how to better use land more efficiently, more sustainably. and they were teaching farmers how to have these classes about how you can do the 3-level farming so that the system kind of keeps itself going without having to have fertilizer. And you have animals come in there and they'll make the ground right. You have the pollinators will come in and make the ground right. You have some animals will come in and eat some of the stuff and move the seeds around, and it'll all regenerate itself. And this one character, he was going around to these classes as well, and he said this: I don't need the agricultural subsidies they're giving farmers, the billions and billions of dollars that farmers are getting from the federal government just to survive, just to say, to cover their costs. Because right now they're not sustainable. They wouldn't cover their cost if they didn't have these government help, these government subsidies. And he says, I don't need that. I'm making $100 an acre by doing this regenerative agriculture. So it can be done right.
Yeah. Would you be fine with eating meat or grains or anything from that type of
I would
organization?
Never. Well, the animals that might come onto this system could be our wild animals, our deers, or skunks, or moose, or squirrels, all over. They'd be the ones doing it. We wouldn't need cows. We wouldn't need pigs. But in the beginning, when farmers need to be encouraged to move towards this, we say, hey, use your cows as the animal in the system, and
that would be to eventually transition it to more natural wildlife like deer and elk and moose.
It's more like we've built a man-made forest almost kind of thing, and we're foraging out of the system to get food.
How do you feel about hunting then?
Huh?
How do you feel about hunting?
Hunting shouldn't be.
No,
hunting's still abusive of now, it's better than the system we've got now. It's better than slaughterhouses and all that. But let's just ask the question: if everybody hunted that ate meat, we'd have nothing left. We'd have to have hunting grounds that are factory farms, and that's you just be changing the slaughterhouse from a slaughterhouse to a rifle. It's still abuse.
What do you think about the argument that's a little contrary to that, where eventually they're going to die, and most likely it'll be from a more of a horrific death from another bigger animal, and a bullet to the heart, a kill done right by a hunter would be a lot quicker, right?
The system that's lasted for millions of years, lasted longer than humans, is when we watch the Discovery Channel. That's the system that's been there. When you have the big cats on the African savanna hunting down the antelope or whatever they are.
Yeah.
What do? They don't go after the healthiest ones like a hunter would, like a human hunter. A human hunter would go after the healthiest ones. They go after the sickest ones. So in a sense, the lines on the Discovery Channel are making the system stronger, as opposed to the humans are making the system weaker. And if we hunted like that, which we would never hunt like that, because you don't want to eat the disease. Or it's not like you eat raw meat all the time like that big cat does, and you're used to the disease and all that. So I don't know if we can make it to a point where hunting would be okay. Yeah. We could definitely talk about it.
Yeah.
If we did things, we have to do things much differently than we do now. It's not sustainable.
Okay.
And we know that the number one greenhouse gas is methane, and the number one source is livestock. We know that for a fact.
Yeah. What about, but to my imagination, a bullet to the heart as opposed to being ripped apart from that jungle cat, I'd probably prefer the bullet if I was the prey, right? Because it's a lot swifter of a death if it's done right.
As an individual, I'd rather be killed by a bullet than be in a jail system and then be murdered.
Yeah.
But it's not only the bullet. I leave behind a family. I might leave behind kids. I leave behind neighbors. I leave behind friends.
But there's a death either way.
That depend on me.
Yeah, but there's a death either way.
Right. But the rest of the system is being abused as well. Even though they weren't directly harmed by that bullet, they are being harmed, because now you've lost a father, you've lost maybe a mother, you've lost a child.
But if you lost that father to being killed by a predator animal, it's the same.
Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe
effect, right?
But the large cat has to do it. We don't have to do it. that large cat wouldn't be alive if that large cat didn't take out that sick animal.
Well,
it's a brutal system, but we don't have to participate in a system like that. We can participate other way. We can have our gardens, which are not brutal.
yeah.
We can share our vegetables, which are not brutal. We can make pizzas together.
Yeah.
It's not brutal. We go out there and we're hunting just like those big cats. It's brutal.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
Yeah. Most likely, though, we won't have 100% of the world on board with such a thing, right?
I understand that philosophy too. That we'll never get 100% of people to
We can try
to stop hunting, but we can always
we can try to shift.
we
I
can have a
agree
goal.
with
We can have a
that.
goal to do
Yeah.
that. We
But
can get sustainable. We can get sustainable.
okay.
When people do these things like trophy hunting
Yeah.
and
yeah.
taking, more animals than they need,
hmm
there's some things that are just blatantly. We all know are blatantly wrong.
Yeah. I think you should use up every piece of the animal if you do kill it, right? Like actually make it
If
worth
we
it.
if we absolutely had to hunt them,
If you had
the
to.
Native Americans
Yeah.
have a philosophy that works very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using all pieces of the animal, eating all pieces of the animal.
hmm
Bones become tools and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
We only take what we need. We don't take 50, use one kind of thing.
What do you think about monocrop agricultural though?
Monocropping, I'm absolutely against that. It's very horrible
Yeah.
from a disease perspective, and it allows disease to adapt to the system very easily and come through the system. And it uses a lot of pesticides, usually a lot of harmful chemicals. Even though a lot of these chemicals are photoreactive and they do a lot of things to bring the rate of usage down very, very low. They say, they figure out an LD50, which is what does it take to kill 50% of the pest organism, and then take that down by like an order of 1,000, and now it should be safe, but it's still using these toxic chemicals. There's another system called integrated pest management, and I would love to see that as being the system that we rate our fruits and vegetables by, as opposed to organic, non-organic. And integrated pest management is basically a system where you have to get so many points, and then your crop gets certified integrated pest management. But these points, you get more points for things that are more environmentally friendly. So let's say
Kind of like the app, right?
kind of like
Sort of, right?
Sort of. Now,
Yeah.
if I do things like I spray for a disease, okay, I'll give you 2 points. Instead, I go and I use a predatory bug that eats the bad bugs. Well, that's much better than spraying, so I'll give you 10 points.
Gotcha.
Or instead of tilling, I hand weed. I might get you 50 points.
Yeah.
And once you get to 100 or whatever you need to get to, out of so many choices of things you can do, you get certified.
Yeah.
So I know if you're certified, you're doing much more than the guy who's not certified.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was talked about years ago when I was in school,
Mhm.
using this as a system.
Is there a definition or word you can call that system? Like
Integrated pest management?
integrated pest management. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
I
never heard of that.
learned that term at CSU, and there's classes in integrated
Yeah.
pest management.
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking non-toxic methods, but remember, we also have to remember that when I have 10 guys go out there and weed a field, that takes a lot more time and energy and costs and paychecks than just running a checker through it
Mhm.
in an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you got to weigh. It costs more to have a system that's more environmentally friendly.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're gonna have to be thinking about that as we have water going away, as we have, we're losing biodiversity that's vital to our human existence.
Yeah.
At least we're talking about things like not having honeybees versus having native bees. We're having a good conversation. We're starting, and I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah.
And places like places of higher education who specialize in this stuff, like Colorado State University being a fantastic place, they're getting that information out there. They're getting those conversations started.
Yeah. Yeah. I like your optimism.
And even at the individual level, we're talking about xeriscaping at the individual home
Mhm.
level. We're talking about not having invasive plants, not having. So the conversations are starting, and they need to be much stronger. We have people like Greta Thunberg out there, who's has some pretty strong asks that need to happen, but she's going all over the world talking to different governments, and she's making at 19 years old, she's making a huge impact on the world.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people we need.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get close to wrapping it up here. It's been
Sounds
great
good.
talking with you. Do you have any final thoughts you want to just put out there before anything else?
Well, I'll go back to the basic groundwork for everybody.
Yeah.
That I think we all need to get involved in our own communities. And if there's something that makes you passionate, find something related to that and fight for that with 100% of your blood, sweat, and tears. And you'll make change in the world that's positive. You might not change everything, but you'll make some changes that are positive.
Yeah. Put some action into your community, right?
Correct.
That you love to do.
Anything. Find, and if you're passionate about something, I guarantee you there's 10 or 100 or 1,000 other people that are also passionate about the same thing.
Yeah.
So find that nonprofit. Find that maybe there's a researcher, maybe there's a professor locally that's also passionate. You're not the first one to do any of these ideas that you're getting passionate about.
Yeah.
Get connected.
Yeah.
But get passionate, because this world needs passionate people.
Yeah. So what I like to do, most of this is pretty free form, but at the end I ask a question. What it is the previous person I had on asked a question for the next person on, and they didn't know it was going to be you, but there's just questions getting passed down. Okay. And so after I ask you, I'll ask you for your question, and it'll be passed on to the next person I have on, just as a fun little thing. And so this is all the questions I've had. And it can be anything as a question. So I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
One is, are you more of a sock, shoe kind of person, or a sock, shoe kind of person?
That's a question I've actually debated in my own brain quite a bit, because that's something that people are like. I think people use that to tell your mental capacity, like, are you insane kind of thing. But there's no right answer to that question. And
what is it for you?
I'm one of those minimalist runners.
Okay.
I don't wear socks. I try not to I wear socks and shoes very infrequently.
Yeah.
But I read the book Born to Run.
Yeah.
And it featured a group. They got a bunch of Americans that were known in the ultra running world when it was pretty young in this country. And they went down. They visited the Tarahumara Indians, who run in these sandals called huaraches. And one of the guys who runs barefoot as much as he can, and when it gets too rocky or it gets glass or some danger, he throws on Vibram. He was throwing on Vibram 5 fingers. We all know them.
Yeah.
They were but then he came back and he created his own more upscale huaraches, and those are basically what I wear. So I run in sandals.
Okay. So you're just a shoe. There's no socks there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to put it that way, yeah.
And then he had a second question. When you eat fruit salad, is it multiple fruits on your fork at a time, or one fruit at a time? Eating a fruit salad.
I don't eat a fruit salad very often. I should probably I don't make my own fruit salad very often. Usually when I eat a fruit salad, it comes out of a little Dole can.
Yeah.
So it's with a spoon.
Okay.
I usually drink the juice first, so I don't make a mess everywhere. It comes right to the top of the can, and then I scoop. So it's kind of, there's a lot of variety on that spoon. And half the time it's all the same color because it's been sitting in that can so long. I don't know what's what. Pears and grapes usually become the same color. Sometimes I don't even know what they are. But I should be doing better about that.
No, it's okay.
Making my own. And it's a great time to be having watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
Watermelons are very versatile.
Yeah.
They got a little bit of salt in them. They got a little bit of. They taste really good, and you can do a lot of stuff with them. You can make smoothies out of them because they're a lot of water. But I should get on the watermelon thing. That reminds me.
And to finish up, what question would you like to propose to the next person on? It can be anything you want. It can be serious or anything.
Well, my friends have thought a lot about this question, and I don't have a solid answer for it.
Okay.
But if we had a society that had no money, what would it look like?
Awesome. Do you have any sort of an answer for that? I love the question.
I think it'll back us up. It'll be kind of a hybrid between. I think it'll eventually go back to money, but it might be trading something that we can consume.
So back to more of like a bartering and trading type of way of life.
But it's definitely going to be a system built on what we want to do, and we talked a lot about this, built on our own expertise. We consider ourselves to be experts as opposed to just what we need to do to survive, what'll give us dollars. You know, we can all work retail, we can all go to university and get a degree and everything, but on the side, we've become an expert in something. Like I've become an expert at riding my bike, it's sustainability, but that doesn't pay me any money, that makes me. But in a moneyless society, I'll be able to do those things and teach people to do those things and help people do those things.
Yeah, awesome.
And then they'll be able to help me do what they want to do. And the bottom line is, at the end of the day, when we lay down and put our head on a pillow, we'll all feel valued as opposed to paid. When you get paid, you're not always feeling valued. And when we feel valued, it'll be a much healthier society.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great way to wrap up. Thanks for coming on and speaking with me. It was a good conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I'd never done something like this where I'm not actively describing something or like watching a movie or something like that. I don't have I'm active in the conversation.
Yeah. We're putting action into the world.
It was interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me get my passions about the world out.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.